Do y'all know what time it is? I don't think y'all know what time it is right now, but I'll tell you anyway. It's that Magi greatness time. Is that Magi greatness time? Alright, so before we jump into the chapter review for the latest chapter, chapter 216, I want to address something huge that came out of the mangaka Shinobu Ohtaka's mouth herself, straight off her vlog, hot off the press, something that she said earlier last week. She pretty much stated that the story is in the midway point, it's already halfway done. As well, she teased that very shortly we are going to get some major death from these characters. And I was just like, Shinobu, really? You're really gonna do this to us? So for starters, let's talk about the halfway point. Little bit disappointed with that because it seems as though I was a little fibbed too, because I remember clearly that on her blog, she said roughly around the 170s or so that we were about a quarter of the way through. And from 170 to this point now, all of a sudden we're halfway through. I don't know if this was something, a speed up from the editor, or maybe it's because the anime is coming to a close, so it's kind of like, yeah, we had our anime run, maybe we should fast forward things up, maybe unexpected things with the story, like the story went faster than she expected. I don't know what it is, but definitely we got a little bit of a speed up, which is unfortunate, but at the end of the day, it's what she want to do, and if it's the way she wants to do the story truly, then all power to her for not milking it, and she's just doing it the way she wants to do it, so I'm happy about that. Little disappointed. I was like, oh, I thought we were only like a quarter of the way in. Now we're halfway in. Hopefully there's no more speed ups where like next week, oh yeah, I'm 75% done. Because then I'll be like, what the fuck is going on? Now, as far as major deaths go, I'm looking at the story, not where we're at right now in the Alma Tran arc. I'm looking at what's going on as far as where we're at in the main timeline, right? So we have Sinbad and Koen. Neither one of them have their vessels. Of course, they have their people with them. You know, Sinbad got his people, Koen got his people, but they don't have their djinn with them. So that already weakens them. And I'm thinking, Shinobu ain't going to make Sinbad die. I just don't see Sinbad dying that quickly. I definitely see with him falling into depravity and all the build up to this character, it would be weird for him to die. I would be like, holy fuck, what just happened? Unless, of course, it's epic as hell and it makes sense, then all power to it. But I more so see along the lines of possibly Koen possibly dying soon, and that's one of the main characters I could totally see dying. I doubt it'll be Aladdin, I doubt it'll be Alibaba, and I doubt it'll be Morgiana. If it's Morgiana, oh my god, expect me going fucking apeshit. But I more so, if any main character is going to die, obviously it could possibly be some of the people as well with them. Maybe it could be Shawkin, maybe it could be some of Sinbad's people, it could be some of Koen's people, but if it's going to be a huge character, I'm going with Koen, and I see that this would be the event that triggers Sinbad to fall even further into depravity, because he will see, yo, I just killed this man, and I'm doing it, and I don't care, and maybe it'll somewhat lead into the events of him falling even deeper into the darkness and setting off where he will be the true villain. Maybe he'll kill him in cold blood, maybe he'll do it with a smile on his face, I don't know, but if there's a major death, I don't see it being Sinbad because he's been built up this long. And of course, Koen has been built up as well. But there's a difference because Koen still has his brother to take over his ideals. Also, Koen has right now Alibaba on the stronghold. Yo, follow me or you're going to get fucked. And this could also possibly push Alibaba into that. You know what? Sinbad, you're a fucking dirtbag. I knew it. I'm siding with the Co-Empire. I'm going to help the brother out. Fuck you. So it could really lead into that way. And if I see a main character dying, I think it's going to be Koen. That's just my prediction. Either way, main characters are coming to an end, and we're at the halfway point. This is just like, Shinobu Ohtaka, why are you so amazing? Why do you know how to make this story so great? So very hype shit right there. There, my prediction is, it'll be Koen, but let's see what happens. And to throw in a quick trivia into this, by the way, in one of my very earlier Labyrinth of Magic episode reviews, remember Labyrinth of Magic was the first season, I remember making a prediction, and I recently found this out by looking in the volumes because I got the first 3, I got 4 on the way, by the way, but I got the first 3 volumes of Magi, and in one of the interviews, Shinobu Ohtaka stated that she, up until the very last stages of it coming out, was sure 100% that she was making Aladdin to be a girl. Aladdin was originally, up until the very last stages, I don't know, maybe in the first chapter as well, because the first chapter is actually the one shot. Maybe Aladdin was supposed to be a girl at that point as well. But ultimately, she was forced by her editor make him a boy. You know, this is supposed to be a shonen. We're trying to make this mainstream. And I'm thinking, what is the possibility of at the very end we find out maybe Aladdin is a girl as well? Maybe that's the daughter of some very crazy people, which I will talk about more in the review. But I just thought that was very interesting that I made a prediction. I was 100% sure, like, you know, Aladdin has a chest wrap, everything, that's a girl. And yeah, of course, obviously Aladdin is a boy. But I just found it very interesting that there were the clues there and I was onto something, but ultimately I was wrong. But at the same time, it still is funny because even to this day, I get questions like, yo, is Aladdin a boy or a girl? Yeah, that's the misconception, and that's why, because originally Aladdin was planned to be a girl. So chapter 216 definitely takes place probably, I'm guessing, a decade, maybe a little more, a little less, prior to the events in chapter 215. You have a young Solomon, you have all the people that we saw in 215, all of a sudden very young. So this is probably, I'm guessing, 10, maybe 15 years earlier, because at this point right now, King Solomon is roughly like 18, 19. When we saw him last chapter, he was already like clearly in his 30s, maybe 40s, so there's definitely earlier on. And the chapter made me understand something when Aladdin was previously saying how he's seen a battle before between magicians and non-magicians in the Alma Tran era. This is what he was talking about. He wasn't necessarily talking about, I don't think, you know, the humans versus the people that actually have magic. I think he was referring to the monsters and the different type of species that were in Alma Tran. Maybe a war ultimately broke out between those and the magicians, which are, I guess, ultimately we get people that have magic and people that don't. But it wasn't actually the Goy that the previous war in Alma Tran had a war with. It was pretty much magicians and then the other species is what I'm guessing. Now, as you can see, the magicians were pretty much corrupt. They were fucked up. They took away the knowledge. They were having all these monsters stripped away. And what I'm guessing is Solomon, which he's referred to as young master by a certain girl, Arba, but then Solomon is correcting her like, yo, I'm not young master anymore, so you're not my servant or anything like that. I'm guessing maybe he was a prince or even a king that rebelled and he was like, yo, I'm not having this. I'm not gonna have these creatures that aren't all bad. And this kind of all dives into racism as well when you really look at it, which is a big theme in Magi. He's like, I'm not having this. And he basically creates a resistance against the magicians and storms their tower to get this divine staff. Okay, what the fuck was up with Ugo being a coward? Really? I did not expect that at all. That shit just threw me for a loop. So we got a little bit of the characterization of who Ugo was prior to becoming a djinn. Obviously, in the main story, he's a djinn, which I'm guessing that my whole theory of reincarnation kind of out the window at this point. What I'm guessing is pretty much everyone that we see at this point that looks similar to the people in the past is just them. Like the jinn are just pretty much those people at the time when the war broke out and everything, when Solomon sent them to the other world, is pretty much them. Same thing with Althamen. When you see all these people that like Ethnon, it makes you think like, how the fuck did Ethnon and all these people go into Althamen? And it's definitely not reincarnation. I'm willing to bet that every single person that is in Earth is that person from the different timeline. Either they were turned into jinn, they made their way as Althamen to the new world, or you got people like Aladdin that was probably sent as well through a tomb. And I'm guessing maybe it's a possibility that Yunnan, when he opened up the very first dungeon, they came out of there. Maybe he's the reason why Althamen was born. Maybe he made the biggest mistake by opening up the first dungeon. But then also, he could have been the reason that Aladdin was freed as well. And that's why Ugo said, now you can go. In the chapter, Solomon meets this girl that is pretty much there, fooled by the magicians to keep on giving this magic and ultimately about to die, named Sheba. I'm willing to bet that that Sheba character is the same girl that we saw in 215 that looked identical to Aladdin. I'm guessing that that character is probably the one that ultimately becomes that character. And at this point, I'm thinking, because we've seen Arba, we've seen like, I think 2 different females aside from Sheba. We've seen Arba. Arba don't look like Aladdin. Arba don't look like Gyokuen. It could be, but I highly doubt that. Then we also see the Dunya-looking chick, which is probably Dunya, I'm guessing, or just maybe a similar character design of some sort. So we have those 2 chicks. But then we also have Sheba, which I'm ultimately, at this point, it does seem a little bit more obvious. The context clues are there now that pretty much Sheba ultimately becomes Gyokuen, and maybe it's a huge possibility that Gyokuen is Aladdin's mother indeed, which it just seems so dark at the same time, and it's kind of like, so that would also mean that Aladdin would technically, if indeed Gyokuen, Sheba's Gyokuen and Gyokuen is Aladdin's mother, Aladdin ultimately is brothers with Hakuryu and Hakue and somewhat related with the Ko as well. It's kind of like, Oh my gosh. And you could totally see Sheba's hatred for other races. And I think that also led on into possibly Althamon's disgust with the Goy as well. Maybe they really just don't like the Goy because they're racist. They're strictly, is like, they like their kind. And you can obviously see in this one that Sheba's looking like, oh, these monsters, they're so nasty, they're so vile, they're beneath me. And Solomon calls her out, which I'm loving Solomon's character right now. He is totally similar to Aladdin, which if he is indeed Aladdin's father, which by the way, talk quickly about Solomon's design, looks identical to an adult Aladdin. This is what Aladdin would look like probably in 10, 15 years. And I'm hoping that this isn't Shinobu's answer to never aging Aladdin to that point. Like, yeah, if you want to know what Aladdin looks like, he's going to look like that, which would be like, oh man, I would love to see Aladdin in 5, 6, 7 years from now. And I'm really hoping that this is not Shinobu's answer to that. Like, I'm never going to age Aladdin, but more or less this is what he's going to look like when he gets older. And what I'm guessing what happens with Sheba and what ultimately leads into the Althamon rebellion is maybe Sheba ultimately follows Solomon's lead. Maybe she does eventually give in to his ideals. Maybe she secretly doesn't. And ultimately the death of one of their comrades, maybe somebody that's really close to them, maybe Arba dies and she falls into depravity and the people around her as well follow her, Ethnon and whatnot. They feel like, holy shit, she was right. Fuck you, Solomon. And they go along with her, and Althamon ultimately makes their way into the new world, either jumping in a dungeon or what have you. But it also makes you wonder, what happens to Solomon that he didn't make it to the new world? Obviously, his son did. Maybe it's some Superman shit where, oh, I'm sending my son, the last son of Alma Tran or some shit. And ultimately, I feel as though Sheba will ultimately grow up to be Gyokuen and ultimately be the downfall to not only King Solomon, but Alma Tran as well. She might be the one that sparks the war and starts everything, the hatred and whatnot. And if that's the case, then holy fuck, Solomon made his biggest mistake by changing what seems to be the relationship at the end of this chapter with Sheba, where he's kind of like, yeah, you're a despicable woman if these are the ideals that you have, and trusting her, and then ultimately there's going to be like a slap in the face if she changes, which she does, obviously. If this is indeed Gyokuen, which it's seeming that way, then yeah, Solomon's big mistake was trusting that girl. And going back to my whole reincarnation kind of being tossed out the window, if you look closely, because I was watching one of the recent episodes of Kingdom of Magic that I review, obviously, and if you look at some of the djinn that were created, the black djinn from Mogamut, they look very similar to the monsters that you've seen in Albateron in 215. So those were probably stored in as djinn as well from Althamon. Maybe they took the species and they were like, we're going to use them, we're going to make them brainless that they are, because remember, they were stripped of their knowledge, so that's why they're just wild animal beasts that are attacking, not thinking straight. And that's what ultimately happened to those beasts as well. That's why when they come, they look identical to the monsters that we saw in 215 that were devouring everyone. Overall, Shinobu Ohtaka is masterfully putting this together. Everything is going piece by piece, perfectly, identically, and it's just like, Shinobu Ohtaka, another great chapter. Only complaint I would say is it's definitely too dialogue heavy. With manga, you ideally want, you know, a decent amount of dialogue and let the pictures tell the story more so. A little bit too much dialogue, but that's overall Magi in general. And at the same time, it is giving you more context to what's going on, more story progression, more development, more history, and overall it's just giving you more and more and more greatness. So once again, a very great chapter. I don't want to say 10 out of 10. I feel as though more this is along the lines of like a 9 to a 9.5. A little bit too story heavy and a little bit of kind of like telling the same thing a little bit over. But overall, it was just another great chapter. So 9 to a 9.5. I can't decide. I'll let you guys decide overall what you think. Or if you thought it was a 10 out of 10, then hey, why not? It's that Magi greatness. Overall, great chapter though. A lot of context to what happens in the future. Assuming again, this whole Sheba theory that she becomes Gyokuen, which it definitely seems that way. And overall, it makes you wonder. First of all, what do you guys think? Who you think are going to be the main characters that die? Big question right there. Who's going to die? Is it going to be indeed Kohen? Do you think it's going to be Sinbad? Do you think it's going to be one of our main that we love, Alibaba? I doubt it's going to be Aladdin or Alibaba. Maybe. If any of the three are going to die, it would be Morgiana. And oh, my heart couldn't take it, people. My Morgiana, no. So there's that as well. What do you guys think about that? Also, do you think Sheba is indeed Gyokuen? Do you think Gyokuen is Aladdin's mother in turn? And do you think that reincarnation at this point is thrown out the window and everybody that we see, either in Althamon, the Jinn, the Black Jinn, Aladdin, do you think that they're all basically transported from Alma-Tran to the New World and possibly Yunnan let loose either Althamon, Aladdin, or both? And just your overall thoughts of this great chapter. It added so much context and it just brought up so much discussion that I'm just like, oh my god, I got like days to talk when it comes to Magi. But that's all I have for this review / discussion. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Thumbs up for King Solomon. Thumbs up for Sheba. And thumbs up for the greatest Shinobu Ohtaka. Baby, you're doing a great job. Keep on working. Your manga's amazing. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day.